Really. I believe you have also been, or rather you were the application audit committee.
Yeah, yeah. For the first 5 years, I was the approval committee for people to sit for the exam. So if you wanted to sit for the exam, you had every road to the exam led through me. So I got to evaluate every application in the first 5 years before it started to really become active, and we needed more volunteers. But remember, PMI was a volunteer organization strictly in those days, and it still is, but it still takes a professional group to run something this massive and this complicated. But yeah, I was the committee, so a lot of people offered a lot of favors to have me help them get qualified.
That's interesting to know. I think today there's a lot of news about the application process and a lot of discussions around it. But it's impressive to know that it was a one-man army back then. So thank you so much. I think that's a classic example of the practical leadership experience that you have, and that's how it's all started, the story, until now when we have reached over 1 million PMPs across the world. So I think with this, we should get started with our session, and I will just stop my screen share and pass you the presenter access so that you can take us forward with the discussion. All right, while Lee is putting up the screen share, quick announcements again. Please continue to stay on mute for video and audio so that we can have a smooth session. Raise your questions only in the chat box. We shall pick it up in the Q&A section as we come to the end of the slides. Thank you for your understanding. Over to you, Lee. Lee, hello, we can't hear you, Lee. We were not getting your audio.
How's that? Is this better?
Yes, yes, now we can hear you.
I'm not sure what happened. Let me say this. I'm doing this program in 45, 50 minutes, and it's going to incorporate about 54 years of education in the world of project management. I learned very early on that the most effective way I could add value to my organization was to get more done than one person physically could get done. So I learned this concept of leadership, where you maximize the performance of individuals that are working on your project to the extent that you have the sum of all the individuals is greater than the project itself. So I've used a lot of these techniques. I've practiced them all over the world. I've been in 23 different countries doing consulting and training, and what I find is, and this is a kind of colloquialism for the U.S., but what I found is everybody puts their pants on the same way. We're all pretty basically the same people. And so I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 things today that I'll get as much detail as I can in the time that I have allowed, but I want to give it to you up front, what I'm going to talk about, so you can look for it. I'm going to start off with something very, very new, just out. In fact, I wanted to create something new for you as an audience that's not been talked about before. So I came up with this idea, and I gave it a title. I called it Maslow's hierarchy. It's brand new. It's only been around for 60 or 70 years, and I'm going to talk about how that plays into the role of leadership on a project environment. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Maslow. I'm going to talk about situational leadership. This is the work of Ken Blanchard, the author of the 1 Minute Manager and 1 Minute Everything Else You Can Think of. He his book that he put out in 1981, The 1 Minute Manager, was an instant hit. And when you look at it, it's a very simple read, but it fundamentally has the concepts of what's necessary to be effective leader in this kind of a situation. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Then I'm going to talk about something called the DISC, the DISC. This is similar to the Myers-Briggs type indicator, except cheaper and easier to understand. And I've grown to really like the DISC personal profile system for using to determine where am I personally in terms of my traits and my capabilities and my skill sets. Where am I in terms of that process? So I happen to have been good friends with one of the 4 people who developed the DISC, and sadly he passed away unexpectedly several years ago. But the fact of the matter is, this particular tool is very important in the role of leadership. So I'll tell a little bit more about that, and then I'm going to spend some good time on just something basic called a feedback loop. I think one of the things that we find is from people in the organizations, when I talk to my team members and I say, you know, what can I do to make you able to perform at a higher rate? One of the things I get all the time is give me clarity of expectation and give me clarity of the connection to vision. Now, I spent a whole hour on talking about strategic linkage. People want to know this. So people want to know what's the vision and the mission, and then what. There's 3 questions you're going to ask. I'm going to talk about this as I get into this program. You should ask in every situation. You should ask yourself 3 questions, kind of like the triple constraint of leadership. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? And what's in it for the organization? Those are 3 things that I need the answers to those 3 questions in order to maximize the performance of any one individual on the team. So I'm a team builder. That's been my reputation. I've brought in projects that have been subsequently called miracles, and I'm going to tell you, it had the people that brought the project in were the people on the front line, the people's doing the work. All I'm doing is making it possible for them to do their job, and that's something that we have to understand. The big term that's come in vogue right now is servant leadership. Well, if you think about that, servant leadership, that's a part of what I've been doing for 50 years, is providing leadership that's needed by the individual contributors. If I don't do that, I'm not going to maximize my performance. So when I say light a fire under the project managers, I mean that you can do it this way. I'm not sure how long that would work, but you've got to make sure that you recognize how this all fits together. So I'm going to tell you right up front, and then I'll go through the slides and clarify some things. I need to tell you 2 stories. The experience that you bring to the table, anybody that comes into a project setting brings experiences to the table, brings knowledge that they've gained over time, knowledge that indicates what works and what doesn't work. The leader's role is to draw that out and maximize the performance of those individuals. So let me tell you 2 quick stories. One is about a rodeo parade. I don't know if any of you are ever involved in parades in your part of the world, wherever you're joined in today. I don't know if you have parades, but we had a volunteer group, a community service group that offered to do things for the community just to enhance the community's image and its offerings to its residents. And one of those things was a rodeo parade. Now, this is in Livermore, California. It's very famous for their rodeo. So they have a big support parade to go along with that. And so I was volunteered by someone. This was my first really big project where leadership was going to be completely necessary. Remember, when you're working in a volunteer organization, everybody that's involved in the project are volunteers. And there's a difference between employees and volunteers. And the difference is the volunteers are there because they want to be there. The employees are there because they have to be there. So we got to make sure we can draw that difference. I want to convert employees from I have to be there to individuals who want to be there. So we got this parade and they asked me to manage it. I hadn't managed anything for that organization yet, so I volunteered to do that. And so we quickly put together what's equivalent now of a work breakdown structure. We started to assign people, and I had a little committee. We'd go out and get people to volunteer, twist their arms, promise them things, but get them to volunteer to support the work. So once we had the WBS, we started laying people on it. We got down to the bottom level, a few odds and ends of jobs left. And my committee came to me and said, we're going to have to pay some people to do these last few jobs that we're dealing with here. And I said, no, we're not paying anybody. I said, we're not getting paid. They're not getting paid. So I said, we need to get volunteers. Now, we had about 300 members, and typical volunteer environment is about 10% contribute, and the others are just on the list to say they're on the list. But we got these volunteers. So we ended up with about 30. Well, that's about 10%, but yet we still had work to do. And they said, no, we've saturated the volunteer pool. And I said, that's impossible. We still have over 200 people that are members of this organization that we can tap for this kind of effort. They said, you'll never fill these jobs with volunteers. And I said, yeah, I will. I said, you bring me next Saturday at 6 a.m., bring me the 5 guys in this organization. And at that time, it was all males under 35. It's since become co-ed. But I said, bring me the 5 guys with the biggest egos. I want people who really think there's something special. I said, bring them here to me at 6 o'clock next Saturday morning, and we'll get somebody to do these jobs. I said, well, I knew I was on the right track because one of the guys said to me, can I only bring 5? In other words, there are plenty of big egos in this organization. And I said, nope, 5, that's all. I need 5. So they went away, and sure enough, Saturday morning, I'm sitting at my desk at 6 a.m., and I look up, and here come these 5 guys through the door and walking down towards my desk, and I'm in shock because they're 5 people that are really important contributors in the community, and I looked up and I said, I just can't, you guys, I can't believe, I'm so excited that you actually are here to look into the possibility of contributing to this parade. Nobody thought you'd come, but here you are. So I'm so excited about it. And the guy said, okay, well, we're here now. We're here now. What is it we need to do? And I said, well, first of all, let me tell you, we have a problem. And the problem is I never would have dreamed that all 5 of you would have come. And the problem is we only have 4 jobs. We only have 4 jobs, and there are 5 of you. So someone's going to have to not get to participate in the parade. And I said, so you guys will have to decide amongst yourself who is the person who doesn't get to play. And so they went away in a room, and I could hear them in there, and they're literally almost arguing about who gets to stay and who has to go. And this went on for about an hour. And finally I went in and I said, look, guys, we got to get on with this. The parade's next Saturday. Who are the 4 people? If you don't know who is going to sit out yet, then in about 1 minute's time, I'll randomly pick someone that doesn't get to participate. So sure enough, at about 50 seconds before the deadline, out they come. Well, the one guy in front of the line coming towards me was holding his hand up, and he's holding something in his hand, and he's walking directly to me, and by the looks on his face, you could tell he was not happy. So he got right up to me, put his hand in my face, and he said, you see this? I did see it. He said, that's the straw. That's the short straw, and I drew it, and so I'm going to live by my commitment. I'm not going to participate, but I'm not happy about it. He said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm here at 6 a.m., and you're telling me I don't get to participate. I'm not happy about it. I said, well, is there, I didn't want him to be upset. Is there anything I can do to help you, feel better about this? And he said, yeah, there is. He said, I want your promise that in this parade, if any of these 4 people that you've selected are not able to fulfill their responsibilities, then I want to know that you'll call me. I want to be the alternate, just in case. And I want you to commit to that. And I said, absolutely. I said, if anything happens, these four, your phone's going to be the first one to ring. So I let them know that it was time to move on and get to the job itself. So that they said, well, that's fine. He said, in fact, you never did really tell us what the jobs were. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, I was so excited to see the people at your level come in that I guess I sort of neglected to tell you that. Here's the thing. We have these horses and we have these shovels. And your job is going to be to walk behind the horses and shovel horse dung. We've had a lot of complaints from the marching bands that they're stepping in horse dung. So your job is going to be walk behind the horses, shovel it. Whoa, I could see this wasn't what they expected. And I could see that they were very, very disappointed in the job. And I said, well, that's what the job is. That's what we do, is we do what we need to do to get the job done. And I said, that's the assignment. You need to come at 10 o'clock next Saturday morning. We get it done. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, they said, we don't know if we want to do this or not. But let me ask you this, they said. These are young businessmen. He said, Lee, if we do this, if we shovel horse dung in this parade, how many people, how many peers, how many of our community peers will see us in the parade? I said, well, this is a big parade. It's been going on for 40 or 50 years, and depending on the weather, there could be 100,000 people watching this parade. So there'd be about 100,000 people see you. And they talk to each other for a few minutes. The guy turned around and says, we'll do it. We'll do it. Now, those four guys have shoveled horse dung for 4 years. 4 straight years. In fact, it got so bad that the alternate called me up and said, I demand another shovel be added to this parade. I've waited long enough. Now, if you see my message, what I've created is an opportunity for someone to realize what they want to get out of the assignment, okay? What's in it for me? What's in it for you? What's in it for the organization? So let's look at this, because no one believed I could do this. First of all, you need to understand the important issue for them, knowing this coming in, was that they wanted to be outstanding contributors in the community. They wanted their business to grow. And so knowing that, I knew I had an opportunity to play on their desire to be seen. So when I say what's in it for them, being seen, being recognized, being seen, doing a job that most people wouldn't want to do in the interest of the community. Okay. What's in it for me? I was able to get volunteers to do a job that nobody thought we could get. So we were able to get that. Now, from an organizational perspective, in this case, the organization that we want to talk about is the city of Livermore, who had asked us to conduct the rodeo. They got a chance to deliver an outstanding product in terms of the rodeo. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? What's in it for the organization? When you deal with people on your teams, you should be thinking about those 3 questions. Because when you decide to get on with it on your project, first of all, we need to understand that you're going to be working in a matrix, typically, almost always nowadays, and that matrix means you're going to have to rely on others to provide you the resources you need to execute your project. Okay. And the problem that we have with that is that you oftentimes don't get to select that individual, and so you've got to learn to deal with the one that you get. Okay, deal with the one that you get. Now, I've used this saying. It also has to do with a bar in Dallas Fort Worth. If any of you are ever to the U.S. and you get a chance to go to Dallas Fort Worth, you need to go to a bar called Billy Bob's. Now, Billy Bob's is it down at the railroad yards in Fort Worth, and you need to understand that this is a place where line dancers, if you ever line dance, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, you need to. It's kind of fun. But the line dancers go there, and that's a place that they hang out because they get a chance to dance and have a little refreshment during their time there. So I go in Billy Bob's, you see, and there's 3 dance floors. This is a huge place. There's 3 dance floors. The first dance floor is for the novice, like you and I would be if we decide we want to learn how to line dance. So you go on that floor and you can make a fool out of yourself and nobody cares. Okay. They have a second floor that's for the let's call them journeymen, for the people that have learned how to do it pretty well. They enjoy doing it, and so they're out on the second floor, the journeyman floor, having a good time. They're not perfect, but they're enjoying themselves. And then there's the third floor. Now the third floor is what we call the professional floor. And this floor, you would never want to go on this dance floor unless you really knew what you were doing. These people are there to show off. They're there to show how good they are at line dancing and impress people with their skills. And some of them have been dancing together for years. We've been going there for years, and we see some of the same people year over year. So we went back, because that's where we go. My wife and I go there and watch them because they're the really fun to watch. So we're watching them, and we're watching and watching. We could see a couple of them really good. And then finally it came time for a break. We're sitting on the sidelines on the bar stools watching, and the 2 of the dancers we'd been watching came over and they sat down almost next to us. And I'm listening in. I kind of nosy sometimes that way. So I'm listening in to see what's going on. And here the man says to his dancing partner, you can see he's looking out at the dance floor. He's watching this one couple. It's pretty obvious he's watching. It's like a tennis match, back and forth, watching where they go. And finally he turns to his partner and he said, "Man," he said, "I sure wish I was dancing with her." This is a big mistake. This is a big mistake for this guy. And she didn't miss a beat. She looked him right in the eye and she said, "Look, bub, you best learn to dance with the one what brung you." That lesson has stuck in my mind forever. When we say learn to dance with the one what brung you in project management, that means you get what you get, now deal with it. Make it work. You don't get your choice. You get who you get. And that's important when you go into the resource allocation wars and have to get what you need for your project when there's 7 other projects bidding on the same resource pool. So if you can't get the right resource, and if you can't get more resources, then it becomes obvious that you've got to take what you get and develop it. Take what you, in fact, Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Man, here's what he said. He said, don't hire winners. Don't hire winners. They're too expensive. Don't hire winners. He said, hire potential winners and then spend your time developing them. That's the idea that I've come across that I think pays the biggest dividends. Not only do I develop a resource from, let's say, from novice to journeyman, but I also now have created an aura of loyalty because of the effort I've expended in the development of this individual. It's hard to do in the matrix because you don't have line authority over these resources. So it's a delicate balance. You've got to build strong relationships with the resource pool owners so that we can make sure that those resources are still connected to us as we move through the life of projects. So here's the problem we deal with, and this is why leadership becomes the issue. In the resource pools, you have a combination of talent, a combination of capabilities, a combination of experience. And so when you're fishing in the resource pool, you're looking at your work breakdown structure work package, and you're looking at the specific work content that's been defined, then we have to make sure that we're trying to match skill set to work requirements. So every piece of work doesn't require a subject matter expert, and so we want to make sure that we're not over applying or under applying skill set capabilities. Now the problem is, though, when we do need a subject matter expert, it's oftentimes impacted by the fact there's only so many in the pool, and if you don't get a SME, then there's a chance you're going to get a schmo. And that stands for subject matter zero. These are new people, not too long in the business. Well, you can't throw them back. You got to keep them, and you got to figure out, how do I maximize their performance? This is the leadership issue. But we've got more things to deal with than that, because you've got to realize that not only do we have productivity impacts when we get a skill set mismatch, but the other issue is the availability of that resource on your project. Remember, we got multiple projects going on, you sharing the same resource pool. And so now, even if that individual said they're going to take 8 hours to do the work that you need to be done, but then you looked at it and said, well, the productivity rate of this one compared to a subject matter expert is 50% because of lack of knowledge at this point. And then I got to say to myself, well, then that 8 becomes 16. Then I got to say to myself, yeah, but what about availability? How much time can they give me? And that's something that we have to make sure we understand, is in the resource pool, you don't get people 100% very often. And so if this individual that's been assigned to you says to you, well, I'm working on 3 other jobs at this time, so I'm available to you for 25% of the time, then you got to understand that means that effort that we thought with a subject matter expert was going to take 8 hours suddenly now takes 64 hours duration, not 64 hours billable, but 64 hours duration. These are all issues you need to be very aware of. Where is the skill set? What you need to do a skill set gap analysis to see what the impacts on the work's going to be, and then find out by working with the individuals what we need to provide them in the way of development. My last corporate position, okay, now I've been out of corporate since '84, but my last corporate position was Vice President of Staff and Organizational Development for the largest contract research organization in the world. And that came about because of my link to project management, because what we found is if I'm going to develop the best resources and have those resources stay committed to our organization, then there are things that I have to do to make that happen. And once we started to do that on a project by project basis, senior management says, why can't we apply this philosophy across the board to every job class that we have? And so that's what we ended up doing. It was a very high level position. I was only 37 years old, and this was a real plum to be in that situation where I had the ability to impact people's performance and what their loyalties were. You've got to understand, this leadership thing is huge. If we lose talent because of failed leadership, the cost of replacing intellectual property is staggering. And so the more we can keep, the more resources we can keep in the organization and keep that intellectual property and develop that intellectual property, the better off the organization is going to be. Okay, so we have to look at that and be very clear about it, which ties us into this idea of performance objectives. Well, what I mean by that in this case is I need to learn to speak their language. I had a project, and I mentioned this in one of my other webinars, and I'll just go a little bit of information about it. I had a project that was needed to be done, not needed, had to be done in 18 months, typically took 3 years, and it was a project that involved an electronic meter, a chemistry strip and chemistry composition, and all the accessory pieces that go along with it. It was a blood glucose monitor, and it was for diabetic in-home use. It was a hot topic, and we'd been killed in the marketplace by a competitor. So I was hired as a contractor to quote, save this project. Well, the fact of the matter is, I didn't know a darn thing about electronic meters less about chemistry development, chemistry compositions. I could design a carrying case, I suppose, but a lot of the accessories I had no idea. Now, some people say, well, you can't, we don't want a project manager that doesn't know the business, doesn't know the environment that we're in. It's just going to be a waste of time. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's my view, and this is something I've pronounced time and time again. Some of you in the audience who've been with me before know this. My view is a project manager is a project manager is a project manager. It doesn't matter what the project is, what the technical content of the project is. And the reason I say that is because I'm smart enough to know I know what I know, and I also know what I don't know. So if I surround myself with good people, I know where to go to get answers. I don't have to have all the answers, and I won't have all the answers, but I'll get them. I'll know where to get the answers, and that's what we did. So I took that project on. A lot of people disagreed with the CEO's choice. They had Boston Consulting Group in the organization, and they passed them over for me. So I thought it was pretty cool. And so we took the project on. We formed a team of about 205, I think is what the final number ended up being. And it was a cross-section of technical disciplines. We executed that project. We finished it in 18 months, a couple days early, actually, from 18 months. The developed project went to the marketplace, was extremely successful in the marketplace. And in 3 years' time, after we introduced that new product, the company, which at that time was a $1 billion company out of Mannheim, Germany, the company was acquired for $11 billion by Roche Labs. Okay, $11 billion. And so it's a success story. It's one that I relish. I have videos of things that we did, of interviews that we had with the people. And the reason it was so impressive, and the reason PMI wrote it up as a miracle project, was the fact that we got 3 years worth of work done in 18 months with this team of 205 people. But because of what we're talking about today, here's what I was able to do. Every single person on that project team worked an average of 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for 18 months. That's what it took to deliver a successful project. Now, the problem is, how do you inspire, how do you motivate people to invest that kind of effort in a project? Well, you talk to them about strategic linkage. You talk to them about what they're adding to the project. You talk to them about what's in it for them. Yeah, I mean, you have those conversations. I had individual private conversations with 205 people, asking those three questions: what's in it for me? What's in it for you? What's in it for the organization? And once we did that, people began to step up. We began to see people staying on longer and longer. And finally, I'd have to go in and say, "Hey, Bob, your wife just called. She's kind of wondering if you're ever going to go home or not." And so I told him, I said, "Look, Bob, you can't do that. You got things to take care of at home." I said, I've seen your wife, so I know why you're not going home. But the fact of the matter is, you can't overdo it. So you can create the other side monster. You can create an environment where people lose track of their outside life. I think in the U.S. we use this term work-life balance. Well, anybody that's been in project management very long knows there is no work-life balance in project management. The only balance we got is let's get the darn thing done. So, but that's what we did. So the 205 people. Now, the incentive we use, because I know somebody thinking, well, yeah, what do you have to promise them? No, don't promise anything that you can't deliver. But what we ended up doing was, against the suggestion of the CEO, who wanted to establish a $2 million bonus pool if we were able to conduct this project effectively. And we rejected that, the team, not just me, the team rejected that in favor of the spontaneous recognition if we're successful. Okay. Well, I told you already we were successful. Within the first week after success, after we could see it was a winner. The CEO, who was about 6'8", 380 pounds, hated people. He came into a group meeting and he informed us that everyone on the team, 205 people, and their significant others would be his guest for 2 weeks in Hawaii. That's all it took. Spontaneous recognition. Don't hold carrots out in front of them. Don't imply rewards that aren't there. I see this happen all the time. Don't make promises you can't keep. So learn to talk their language. Spend time. I used to spend tremendous amounts of time dealing with people on my project. I used to have people come in and say, "What the heck do you do all day? You're never in your office." That's because I'm out talking to people. I'm out building relationships. I'm out finding the truth. The truth lives with the workers. And so that's what you need to do. Spend time doing that, because you never know who's going to rise to the top. You know, they say cream rises to the top. You never know. And so when you're working with people, you got to work with people that you consider all of them have the potential to be winners, the potentials to add more value to the organization than was anticipated. Your job as a project manager, 50% in my view, is the development of the people working on the project. So we need to make sure we can build those concepts into my approach to doing management. It's a people process. If you think you're going to be successful with Gantt charts and risk plans and critical path schedules and work breakdowns, if you think you're going to be successful with those, you got another thing coming. Those will help you be successful with people. Teams of people get things done, and developing those teams is your ticket to success. Your ticket to success. I can tell you, I never worked. I mean, I've been in the business 54 years. My last 50 years, I haven't worked. I haven't done a darn thing other than develop people who then got the work done. So it's important to understand that. And by the way, just so we can be honest with one another, because your management doesn't understand this oftentimes, that more isn't better. It's not about more resources. It's about the right resource at the right time. So we gotta fight that inclination to, hey, you're coming up on the last month, you're 2 months behind. Can we send you 100 programmers and you can catch that up? Well, everybody knows that doesn't work. The more, what is that? The more cooks in the kitchen boil a stew, or I don't know, some crazy saying like that. Too many people involved actually is a negative impact. So we've got to use our project management information to be able to identify what skill set we need and when we need it, and then identify what the impact of not getting it will be on the project, and then negotiate. It's a strong thing. I mean, if you can't negotiate, if you're not being in a position where you get a chance to do that, you got to work on your negotiation skills. You got to work on your presentation skills. If you've not gone to Toastmasters, get going. Project managers have reams and reams of information, but many of them don't have a clue on how to present it in a meaningful way that adds value to the decision making. So think about that. If one of your development needs is to build your ability to present in public, to present in groups of people, then you better go get that done, because it's not going to do it on its own. Okay, so you got to look at it from that standpoint. So here's the thing. This is where bosses, and I've been a boss, so I know how this works. I've seen it work that way. But here's the thing. Because of our technology we have, we are now able to disconnect from workers from a personal perspective. In other words, the boss never goes out and interacts and contacts and sits with and chats with. That just doesn't happen anymore. Instead, they identify what the objective is, they identify when it needs to be done, and then basically they say, get her done. And they don't want to be bothered by all the impediments that you have in order to get that done. When I first got my vice president's job in staff and organizational development, about 2 weeks into the job, the CEO of the company who had picked me for the job, he pulled me aside in his office. He said, "Lee," he said, "listen, I've noticed recently that you are still having lunch with that same group of individuals that you were working with before you were promoted to vice president. I said, no, that's right, Neil. They're my friends. In fact, I was honest with them. I said, they're the ones that got me here. I mean, without them, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And he said, well, listen, Lee, he said, that's not the way we do it around here. I said, what do you mean? He said, we don't spend time with the workers. We are executives now, and we need to act like it. Okay. Well, that's nuts. I mean, I didn't do that. I'm not going to stop befriending people, building on people who helped me get where I am, because I want to help them come up the ladder as well. So you've got to be careful not to disconnect. This is one of the problems with this virtuality. I mean, I'm loving it. I'm touching thousands of people every week with webinars, but I'm not getting a chance to build relationships. I mean, I'm not following up. I've done some of that with Monica. I've done some of that with Kitty. I mean, there's people I've had a chance to have a little bit of an extended interaction with, but generally speaking, you see, I'm speaking to ghosts because I never get to follow up on the things that we talk about and identify ways that we can work better together and improve individual performance. So don't take this this idea that we don't have to have personal contact seriously. It's just a mistake that people make. It's all about people. So don't disconnect from them. That's nuts. So you want to be part of the team. Okay, you want to be part of the team. Everybody's part of the team. And some people say, well, yeah, but some people are more important than others. Well, that's not true. That's just not true. If you're a PMP, for sure, but even if you're just a lowly old project manager getting things done, you're going to know that every work package in a plan has to be done before that project is successful. That's every one, not just ones on the critical path, every single work package. Well, behind every work package are people who have been assigned that work, people who are attempting to get that work done in the interest of the organization and the project. So every single person is just as important as the other. And I think if you don't recognize that, you really need to step back and think about how are you interacting with your teams. Are you making it so they want to be there? Are you making it so it's almost like a volunteer environment where they want to be there? They want to be on your team? I got in trouble with this at General Electric because everybody wanted to be on my team. And so the other managers, the other project people got upset with me and pulled me aside and said, "Why? Look, you got to stop doing this. Everybody wants to be on your team." And I just smiled and said, yeah, that's a shame. So you can create that kind of environment. You know when people want to know, people want to talk to you, people want to be with you, you're there, you're getting there. Okay. Now some people say, well, I don't have time for all that interaction and team building and relationship development. And my view is you don't have time not to do it. You don't have time not to develop those relationships, and that means the good ones and the bad ones. In fact, I learned this from my wife. Whenever we come in contact with someone that on the first blush we judge them and we don't like them, we judge them and we don't want to interact with them. Well, we've learned the hard way over the years. It's real easy to misjudge on first impressions. So be willing to invest the time to get to know those individuals. And you can do that with those instruments I talked about in the beginning. They're available. You can take the DISC free on the web. DISC Personal Profile System. Look it up. You can take a sample. It gives you insight. Now, here's the thing. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is very, very complex, very burdensome, and breaks your characteristics into minute little packages. And that's all okay, because you see what happens is I need to know my type so that I know how much I have to change to connect with your type. In other words, I'm not asking you to meet me where I am. I'm committing myself to meet you where you are. So in order to do that, I need to know what my type is. Well, DISC is the poor man's Myers-Briggs, and you can use that and identify very quickly what your type is. And then it goes on to give you examples of how best to interact with others who have a different type or have the same type. It gives you insights into doing that. Once you've read it and understand it, then the hard part is going out and doing it. And that's where we miss the boat. We tend to think that people need to meet us where we're going. And the actual fact is I need to find out where they're going and then meet them there, to be able to enhance their capabilities and improve their attitude and performance. So Ken Blanchard, 1 Minute Manager, situational leadership model. It's powerful stuff. And it breaks it down to where there's really only 4 situational leadership concepts that we have to deal with, and defines those in detail. So please be able to do that. Now, last point, and then I'll kind of close it out, is Maslow. I told you I was going to introduce you to Maslow. If you haven't heard of Maslow, if you haven't read about Maslow, you've been living under a rock. I mean, he's been around for a long time, and it's a hierarchy of individual needs. Basic needs and on up to self-actualization. Let me just give you a quick synopsis. At the bottom of the pyramid, at the base, okay, is your basic needs: food, water, shelter, things you need to stay alive, so to speak. Now, his theory is this. As I move up the hierarchy, and I'll go to each level quickly, his theory was this. If I don't satisfy the first level, the basic needs level, there's no chance that I'm going to move to the next level. There's no way I'm going to move to the next level until my first level is satisfied. Okay, so let's say you satisfy the basic needs. You got a nice car, you got a nice house, your kids are dressed well, you're going to the best school. So you've satisfied your basic needs, okay? So the next one is security, safety and security. So the problem is people have to go to work in an environment where they don't feel safe and secure. Their productivity rate goes down dramatically. So we need to make sure that they feel comfortable. Now, in today's world, and I'm still hearing more of this than I like, and I don't know what's associated with the pandemic or what's real, but the fact of the matter is the security issue here is the job security. Am I going to have a job tomorrow? I remember when layoffs were going on at GE, you could watch people stand around talking about whether they're going to have a job tomorrow. They were doing it so much and so often that they guaranteed they weren't going to have a job because they weren't doing any work. So we want to know security. Now, from the people on your team, you can't guarantee security. You can't, but you can guarantee you'll do everything you can to keep them on the team. Once they know that, they feel confident, they feel good about the effort that you're going to put in to keep them there, okay? Next level is, let's see, what do we have next? I think it's social, okay? So I've got them at basic needs, I feel secure in the job. Social, this is the one that I'm big on. A lot of social. In that team of 205 people, we had some social thing going on almost every week, involving the family, involving the kids. I mean, we had zoo animals. I mean, it was a zoo, to be honest with you. But what happened is productivity went up. Productivity went off the chart, and everybody knew we were there to work. But when we weren't working, we were having fun. By golly, we're going to have fun. So the idea of social needs to be there. Now, it needs to be optional. Some people don't want to involve themselves in social. Don't force them. Make sure that there's an opportunity for them if they choose to. Okay, and then the next level is self-esteem. Self-esteem is very important. I've never found anybody that I've worked with who feels really bad about themselves. They really don't feel confident in their capabilities. Never seen them reach star performer status. Just doesn't happen. They're down on themselves. So we need to make sure that we can help them with that. Now, here's where project management comes in. If you think about it, project management is perfect for this self-esteem issue because we plan projects with objectives and milestones and people assigned to doing those things. And so when those things get done, we give them feedback. They feel good about their accomplishment. If they don't get done, we do a gap analysis and give them a development opportunity so they feel good about themselves. So that's one of the things you've got to think about. And every individual, just like this photo, every individual is different. So you can't treat them all the same. But anybody that tells you treat them all the same hasn't been there, hasn't done that. Okay. Now the last level is called self-realization. Okay, self-realization. And so what we have to understand is what Maslow meant by that is that when we get to that level of at the top of the level, you probably will be dead or on your way to dying, because it doesn't happen that way. Every time you get close to the top, you fall back down to one of the lower levels. Well, it's really the way it operates in projects, because every time a project's done, this team of people that you've whipped into a frenzy to deliver good products to the organization has to go find another job. Now, they might not get with someone who has the same skill and same attitude about leadership that I get. And so they have to try to help that leader learn what works and what doesn't work. So the self-actualization has never been a goal of mine, because I think that'll only come when I'm gone, when I'm dust, because I think there's always room for improvement. I don't think I'll ever become self-actualized. Okay. All right, so let's kind of wrap this baby up with a couple of comments associated with this. Now, I told you I had problems when people wanted to stay on my job, and they didn't want to go to the next job. They didn't on purpose delay my jobs. Don't get me wrong, but the fact of the matter is they really preferred to stay with me. Me being a good leader, not me leading, me being a good leader. Anyone can do this. None of this is something you individually can't do. There's really no excuse except your rationale or your procrastination that you can't do this. Now, in the U.S., this slide represents something probably a little different than what it does in your environment, but we cleaned it up a little bit, and basically what you see here is the boss is the filter between all the stuff that runs downhill and the workers. One of your key responsibilities is to free the workers up to do their work. In other words, there's so many interruptions, there's so many other requirements, there's so many people pulling on them for a piece of this and a piece of that. Your job is to filter that out. You've got to deal with it. That's your role. Free people up so they can get the job done. I guarantee, if you were to look at these things that we've talked about today, remember, I'm giving you in 1 hour what I generally would take about 3 days to teach, but I'm giving you the concepts. And what you need to do is think about what I've said and think about what could you do differently that would make you feel good about yourself and improve the productivity of the people on your organization. In my case, I increased the productivity by 100%. We were looking at 3 years. We got done in 18 months. That's 100% productivity increase. I would never guarantee that. I would never promise that. But I will guarantee you that you can easily see a 30 to 40% productivity increase, and that's free. That's just higher levels of performance from individuals we're already paying. So think about what I've said and take to heart the benefits of leadership. Don't leave home without it. Take it with you and use it. Okay, that wraps up the formal presentation, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions you might. I can't imagine you'll have any, but I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Lee. There are quite some questions coming up, so we'll take a quick few. There was one which came from MKD, who says, especially when you do not have a technical expertise, when the PM does not have technical expertise, how they can trust their team to give the right decision, right information for the right decision when we don't know whether they are good enough technically?
Yeah, that's a good question. But by the way, you answered your own question. You've got to trust the people on your team. Now, it's if you watch some of these gangster shows, the trust's a big thing. Can I trust you? And if the answer is no, they shoot you in the head. It's not quite that way in projects yet, at least. But the fact of the matter is, you got to build that trust. One of the things I've said before that people have sort of enjoyed is that the acronym for trust means tremendous results using simple techniques. In other words, I can build trust by just building the relationship. And you're right. If I don't, when I went in that place, I didn't even know what electronic meter was. I certainly didn't know what a chemistry composition for blood glucose analysis was. But I trusted the people because they had what's in it for me, what's in it for you, what's in it for the organization in the back of their mind. So they knew that if I didn't trust them, or if they didn't give me trustworthy information, there was a potential for failure, and that way they're caught up in it as well.
Thank you, Lee. There's another one from Surya, and he says, how can PMs deal with top management politics which impact project execution? Any suggestions?
Yeah, quit working. Quit your job, because you're never, ever going to get out of politics. It's just not going to happen. We can talk about it all we want, but everybody has an agenda. Everybody has an idea of what's important to them. And so all you can do is deal with the politics, because you're not going to make them go away. Now, when these politics affect the work that you're doing, let's say some political decision causes a schedule slip of 2 months on a very important project. Now you can have an impact, because you can now communicate, you can articulate what the impact of that political decision is. You're not talking about an individual, you're talking about the political situation, and here's the impact. And if the management looks at that and says, yeah, we thought that's the way it's going to be, then you got to roll up your sleeves and get her done. I mean, you can't fight City Hall. That's a saying we use here all the time. So you're not going to avoid it. You're not going to eliminate it. If we had a totally flat organization where everybody was equal, maybe. But generally speaking, some of the biggest nightmares of my life have come as a result of a political decision that I was in total disagreement with. But life goes on. I'm still here.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing, that we cannot change that. It's beyond our circle of influence sometimes. So we have some more questions. The next one is from Ravi, and he says, when a project team is big, that is about 200 or more, what tool would be useful to get the truth from the workflow all the way up to the PM?
Well, the size of the project is critical, but I've got to say, first of all, I would subset the personnel organization. In other words, I've had almost like a program. I've had projects below that with certain skill set capabilities. So I'd subset that. But as I develop the project plan, I've got to develop the entire plan from its start to its beginning, from the top level of WBS to the work packages. And the theory says if we have vertical integration and horizontal integration, then I should be able to track from any one work package. Remember, PMI says that's 80 hours of effort, so that's tiny. I ought to be able to track from that work package up the hierarchy to determine what the impact on any subsequent level of the work breakdown structure would be. I would use, this is just me, because I've never actually implemented one myself, because that would have been work, and I told you I don't like to do that. But the PDM methodology, precedent diagram methodology, is what PMI recommends. There's lots of software out there that'll provide that capability. The big difficulty with that, and people aren't using it like they should, is it is pretty complicated. It's complex. When you take a project that has 2,000 or 3,000 work packages, that's a big effort to integrate those. So you've got to make sure that you understand how that all fits together, so that we can determine what impacts any individual effort has.
Thank you, Lee. There's another one from Spotukuchi. And he asks, do you recommend any specific pointers on how to revamp individual performance-based appraisals to group-based ones, especially in the current agile setups?
Yeah, I haven't done that in the real world since Agile has become so big, but I think the beauty of Agile, this is something Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager, he made the comment, feedback is the breakfast of champions. The beauty of Agile is you're doing feedback analysis every stand-up meeting. You have those people participating. They're telling you what they got done, what they're going to get done, what's in the way of getting it done, and you're going to do that on a daily. I would have given my right arm to do those kind of status reviews on a daily basis. So you're really doing it as the course goes, as the time goes on. And each time you do that, when you look at that third element of what's in the way of me getting my job done, this is an opportunity to see, is there something I need to do from a development perspective for this individual, or is this a group issue? And we can analyze it from that standpoint. That's one of the big benefits, the huge benefits of Agile. When we do retrospectives, we're doing closeout analysis incrementally. Can't get better than that. Hate to say it, can't get better than that.
Thank you, Lee. We've actually run out of time, but we'll take two last quick questions. One coming from Bhaskar, and he says, please share at least one of your big or tough challenge and how you ended up resolving it.
Okay, yeah, that's an easy one. We on our schedule that we had to get done in 18 months, we were working through the schedule. We're about maybe almost halfway through 9-month time frame. And as we analyzed it, as we statused the work that was being done on what we call the carrier strip for the chemistry composition, there was some gluing that was involved in the production of that strip. And what we found was that the blood chemistry was interacting with the glue that was on the strip. Okay, seemed like a simple thing, but we started looking. We couldn't find a glue that didn't interact with the chemistry. So now we got a problem. We're 9 months in, and this is a showstopper. The show's over. And so we started to search using the information we had in the project, and what we ended up with was we connected with NASA. You're familiar with NASA? We just sent a couple guys up to the space station, thanks to private equity, and so we contacted them and explained our problem, and they said, we think we got something to work for you. The heat shield on the capsule that returns people from space, or did, they're not using it anymore, return people from space, the heat shields are glued on to that capsule, and they said, we believe that glue will not interact with the chemistry. So we did some testing, did some time extrapolated testing, and found that he was correct. The glue was adequate for what we needed, and we were able to get that done. We lost a week on the schedule, so we worked about 18 hours a day for that next week to catch that up, but that's what eventually went to market. So the same glue that holds the space shuttle together is holding these strips together for people who want to check their blood glucose levels. Without project management, by the way, we wouldn't have known. We'd have never been able to fix that, but we fixed it on the run. Everybody's happy, and the Engelhorn family in Mannheim are $11 billion happy.
Thank you, Lee. And the last question for the evening is, do you have any specific advice to the new project manager under the current circumstances that we have? How should they rise to the challenges? And that's come from Kritibas.
Yeah, I do have, I don't know if it's new environment. Well, the new environment would say, learn the fundamentals of Agile. I mean, I can tell you that right off the bat. If you want to be a project manager, you can learn about the basics of project management. I mean, I could teach you project management basics in a very short course, but then you've got to transition your thinking to how does that apply when we're doing Agile-oriented projects. The combination of those two is your ticket to stardom. If you can be effective as a project manager and also effective as a Scrum manager, you're gonna have a lot of opportunities open up to you. Some of the project managers I know fight Agile. They resist it with vigor. No, I'm not changing to Agile. That's just another way of doing business. It does change the concept of project management, because now the project manager is not the big show in town. It's the Scrum Master. So I'm going to give advice to any new person is to understand project management thoroughly before you transition to Agile.
Thank you, Lee. And with that, we'll have to close the questions for today's session because we've run over the time a little bit. Thank you so much for the insightful session today. A lot of information. We've got a lot of appreciation and thank yous coming in on the chat box. And I personally can confirm that the DISC categorization that you mentioned, I did try that some time back and I found it to be extremely apt. There was another one called 16 personalities, and that was also quite interesting, but then it was too many categories. But very, very helpful in understanding people and dealing with them. But thank you so much for all the insights that you've shared. But before we end the session, I think for the audience, 2 quick announcements. The PDU information has been pinged to you on the chat box. It can be claimed under self-claim, under leadership category, under organization meetings. We should also be sending you an email with the same information along with the feedback. So do let us know your feedback of the session. And the last thing is that I think no celebrity interaction is complete without a photograph. So we should be having a group photograph at this point before people start logging off. I would request everybody to kindly come on to video in the next 30 seconds so that we can start taking some group pictures. And while people are coming on, Lee, any wrapping up words that you want to convey to our audience?
No, the only wrap-up words I have, I want to make sure you all understand that I don't have any special power or capability. I don't have any secrets in terms of success in project management, other than establishing and building strong personal relationships. That's the secret. That's how I got where I am today. Nothing magic about it.
Great, thank you. Lee, may I also request you to stop your screen share so that the pop-up comes in with people's photographs? Thank you so much. All right, people, our moment now. Let's start taking pictures with Lee. I think this is going to be once in a lifetime moment for a lot of us. Thank you so much, Lee. I think for a lot of us, this is like a dream come true. A lot of us have been struggling with PMPs, either on the journey or after getting it. But it's a dream for us to hear from you directly as a founder of PMP. It's a big moment for a lot of us. Thank you so much. Just hold on for a few more minutes, please, while we take the photographs. And I would request the people who have shared photographs to please share with me also so that we can use them in our thank you message with Lee. Wow. Nice to see so many happy, smiling faces on a Sunday evening. And I think people really enjoyed the session. It can be seen on their smiles. And thank you, Kitty, also for joining us. Thank you, Krista. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. I can't take everybody's name, but thank you, everybody, for joining us today in this session. We really had a great experience today. We will be sharing the recording of the session on our YouTube channel shortly, and we will be sharing the link also on our social media. So if at all you have missed some part of the slide deck, you can catch up. And if somebody would be interested to catch up on the session, please do share the link with them. Happy to share the information and knowledge that we have received today from Lee. All right, I think now it's time to wrap up. Thank you very much. And we shall see you in the next session next time. Please take care, stay safe, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.